Hello everyone, welcome back to TRANSPOTECH. Due to some technical issues, I'm not able to come up with the videos on MX Road series. I'll try to fix it up soon and we'll come up with the videos on vertical alignment using MX Road. But today we'll be looking into a new software that is used for editing and analyzing all sorts of data, that is SPSS. Usually in transportation engineering or especially in traffic engineering, we have to deal with lots and lots of data. Data means volume data or the speed data of various categories of vehicle, and to analyze those data to come up with some conclusion is very difficult, and it might be time consuming when we use Excel. So Excel is user friendly in its own way, but I find SPSS little less time consuming than Excel. So it's good to know a new software to analyze the data. That's why I'm coming up with this video on SPSS. Let's get introduced with SPSS. SPSS stands for Statistical Package for Social Sciences, and it was first launched in 1968. As I already said, it is used for analyzing and editing data. So once you open SPSS, you will see this window. If you see at the bottom left corner, you will see a data view and a variable view. Suppose if data view is a name, variable view is a dictionary. So whatever data is in the data view is described in variable view. Suppose if I enter a data here as 52, and in variable view, if I go into that window, I can see the description about that data, like the name, type, width, decimals, label, values, missing columns, align, measure, and rule. I'll describe it one by one. Name is the name of the data. Like what is it? What is the data? So suppose 52 for me is the speed. So I'll keep it the name as speed. Now coming to type. The data might be a string, or it can be numeric value, or it can be some scientific notations, or it can even be a date. So depending on what kind of data you have to define the type of the data. Suppose for me speed is numeric value, so I won't change, but if you see here in the options, there are various options to describe the type of the data you have. So you can choose the option according to the data you have. Next is width. Width defines number of characters that your data can have. Here the width is 8. That means this particular speed data will have only 8 characters. You can just enter 8 characters here. Now coming to decimals, it defines numbers that you can have after decimal. Like if there is 2, then it means you can have 2 numbers after decimal. Suppose if I change it to 0, then you can see here there is no decimal and there are no number after decimal places. Again, if I change it back to 4, you can see there are 4 numbers after the decimal. So it defines how many numbers you can have after decimal. Let me come into label. So before label, I'll just come with values and I'll describe label in between. So what is values used for? Suppose I have 4 speeds. I mean that is of different categories of vehicle, and I want to specify the categories of the vehicle. Like suppose the first speed is of bike, the second speed is of car, and similarly this is of truck. So if I want to put truck, so what is happening here is if I go to variable view, the width of this variable 4 that was introduced here is just 4. So I'm not able to type the 5th character here. So if I want to increase the number of character that is used to describe a variable, or that is used to describe data, so if I want to press the 4th one, I have to change it here. Like if I keep it to 5, then I can enter the full name like truck. But again, I cannot enter the 6th one. So for that, I'm just keeping it to maximum as 10. A type of vehicle won't go more than that. So suppose this is a bus. Now here You can see this is some variable name, and I want to change it as type of the vehicle. So if I'm keeping it as type, I can just write type. If I cannot put a space here because it will be considered as an illegal character. So label is the detailed description about the name of the variable. Like I can just mention here type. Okay. Then I can put a label as type of vehicles. So what type it is? Type of vehicle. So there are some restrictions in what categories can be added. I mean, what characters can be added in the name, but there is no such restrictions in case of labels. So for the detailed description about the variable or the data, label is used. Now let's us come to values. Suppose I don't just have 4 datas, I have a number of datas like 12, 15, 32. Okay, suppose I have 15 datas, and I know that this particular first 4 set of data belongs to one category of vehicle, second some data belongs to some categories of vehicle, and I want to represent them with some numerical values. Like if I want to represent bike with number 1, car with number 2, truck with number 3, and bus with number 4, I can assign these types into some numbers, into some numerical values. Like you can, so if I want to give numbers to some categories of vehicle, suppose if I want to give number 1 for bus, number 2 for car, number 3 for truck, and number 4 for bike. So in this case, now if I go here, if I keep it in this view, so if I keep 1, it will come as bus. Okay, I'll just put it in this view. If I keep it as 2, if I keep it as 3, if I keep it as 4. Now if I change it here, it will show me the type of vehicle. So basically some values will be assigned to some numbers in this values option. Now missing is, how do you deal with the missing data? That we will come later. Column means width of the some certain columns. Like I'm keeping it 20, so it is bigger. If I keep it as 10, it will reduce. So if I keep it as 20, it will increase. Now alignment is, how do I want to align the characters or the data there. So if I want to keep it as centralized, so I'll keep center, left alignment or right alignment. Now this measure is what kind of data is the data that is present in the data view. So suppose my string is a numeric data. So the data which is obtained, which can be obtained by measurement, then that comes under scale. If it is some rank order data, that comes under ordinal data. And nominal data means categories, like type is categories. So here it is nominal data, that is a scale data. Role is how do you input the data. So how did you bring the data? I inputted the data, so that is input. So there are all the rules of the data also. Yeah, that's it. So this is the introduction about the graphical interface or the data view and the variable view in case of SPSS. In the next video, I'll come up with the analysis of data using SPSS. Till then, keep watching TRANSPOTECH. Thank you.